I'm your host, Deke. We got an Aaron Rodgers update to go over. We got a new signing and some news regarding the Chris Olave trade rumors. And then if we have time, maybe we'll talk about the tush push at the end, because the Steelers were one of the teams that voted against keeping the tush push in the game. And I think rightfully so. I think tush push is played out. It's not a football play. Just get it out of the game. But anyway, if we got time, I'll talk about that at the end. Let's start off with Aaron Rodgers. So he went on Joe Rogan today. Pretty much the most famous podcast in the world, and talked with Joe for 3 hours. So you would think maybe something would come up about the Steelers and his desire to play football. When is he going to make his decision? Is he going to be at the Steelers OTAs? Is he going to be there for minicamp, training camp, any of that? Like maybe it would just slip through at some point in the conversation, right? 3 hours. I know Rogan's not, the biggest like NFL fan or anything. That's not the point of his podcast, but you would just think maybe we would get a little bit of information regarding that. But no, we didn't at all. We got nothing. Absolutely nothing. They didn't bring up the Steelers. They didn't bring up the football at all. But there is a little bit of a hint from Aaron on what could be holding up his decision. And it's not really dissimilar from what he mentioned on McAfee. It's just that maybe we got some clarification on what's going on behind the scenes. Tweet from Alex Kozores is in a new interview. Aaron Rodgers hints at personal issues he's previously referenced, delaying his NFL decision. And quoted from the Rogan interview, Rodgers says, "I've been in the weeds with these people who are close to me that have cancer." So that could be some of the stuff going on behind the scenes that Rodgers mentioned on McAfee. Now, to me, I mean, we didn't really need to hear that. I think most could maybe assume that was probably what Rodgers was talking about when he first brought it up on McAfee. Like he had some personal stuff going on that he was putting most of his attention to right now. He wasn't focused on football. He was just going to let the offseason play out. And he felt like he wasn't holding anyone hostage by directing his focuses elsewhere. He mentioned I'm 41 years old. It's my first time being a free agent. Retirement's on the table. Like, I'm taking my time with this. He's like, I'm not really in the football mindset right now, but I still am interested in playing. I've let all these teams know that, don't let me hold you up from your offseason plans. But Rodgers obviously had a conversation with the Steelers, met with them for 5 or 6 hours. But like going back to the personal issues, the behind the scenes stuff. I mean, yeah, I feel like Rodgers has every right to be focused on that if he wants to. He doesn't owe anyone. He doesn't owe the Steelers. He doesn't owe any of these teams anything on making his decision on his football future, right? Like if that's how he wants to be spending his time, if that's how he wants to be focusing his attention right now, rightfully so. I think everyone can completely understand that. And I didn't need to hear this, right? I don't think most people needed to hear this. Whenever you say you got personal issues, you got stuff behind the scenes that you want to be focused on, like that is good enough. So if this is actually it, then even more understandable, right? Even this clarifies it even more, and it makes it more understanding. So Rodgers, with this being the case, he could do whatever, man. Like his football career is already stamped. He's been in this thing for how many years? Playing at a Hall of Fame level. I mean, if he wants to take his time on what he wants to do in 2025, he has every right so. But the Steelers also have every right to do what's best for them. So if the Steelers feel like Rodgers continuing to take his time, continuing to devote his attention to his personal issues or family, whatever it is, the people close to him that are maybe potentially battling cancer, if that's where he wants to devote his time for the next however many weeks, months, and the Steelers feel like even with Rodgers taking that time, being patient with it, if he ends up signing by July training camp, that still is something that is in the Steelers' favor for the upcoming season, that still works for them, then so be it. Because I think that's the case. Like Rodgers could sign middle of training camp, and I'd be fine with it. I think it's an upgrade. Like, you're adding Aaron Rodgers still, but the question is, what is that breaking point? What if Rodgers hasn't made his decision by middle of August? And he has every good intention for not making his decision either, for waiting, because if he's got stuff behind the scenes, if he got personal stuff, like, no one can blame him, right? Like, hey man, you got to do your thing. Like, football isn't everything. Like, there's more to life. And if you want to devote your time, if you want to have your attention on other stuff right now, 100%, rightfully so. Like, no one is blaming you. Completely understandable. But again, the Steelers have a season coming up. They got to focus on the 53 men that are going to be playing for their team and what's best for them and just what's best for the whole Steelers organization, right? They got to focus on that. And if they feel like, man, Rodgers waiting until August to make this decision, waiting till, who knows, a couple weeks before week 1, we're in the middle of preseason. If he still hasn't made the decision yet, we got to move on. We got to do what's best for us. And if Mason's playing good, if Mason is showing up in training camp, he's showing up in these preseason games, and the rest of the players are really following him. They're taking a liking to Mason. They feel like he can be the leader for these 17 games in 2025. Then the Steelers could say, you know what, it is time for Mason. So I don't think, like, the details of this, if this is even what Rodgers is talking about, this could be completely separate from what he mentioned on McAfee. But if this is it, again, even more understandable than what we initially got from him on McAfee. It becomes even more understandable, but I don't think I didn't even need this, right? I don't think any of us, if someone says they got stuff going on, they got stuff going on. You don't got to give the details. Not at all. I think most of us could assume it was something along these lines whenever he first mentioned it on McAfee. But either way, man, Rodgers has the right to do what's best for him, his life, people around him, his family, whatever it is. But again, the Steelers, they got to do what's best for them. And if Rodgers continues to wait on his decision and continues to let this thing play out, there is going to be a line. There is going to be a breaking point. What is that point? I don't think training camp's that point for me. I don't think training camp. But again, when you're sitting middle of August, preseason games are going by, you're only a few weeks out before the regular season starts, week 1. That might be around where the line is, to me, at least, where you got to say, you know what? And this is all if Mason's playing good. If Mason's not playing good in the offseason, the training camp doesn't look too hot for Mason, then it's a different story. I think Rodgers could sign week 1 or right before week 1, and, he'll be the guy for 2025. But if Mason's looking good, the Arthur Smith system fits him, he becomes the leader of this team while Rodgers isn't here, then yeah, at some point in August, I think you gotta maybe go with Mason. And I'm fine with that. Completely fine with that. We got some comments though before I move to the next topic. D-Max says, Rodgers gets us to what? 11 or 12 wins with a playoff win. Mason's ceiling is 10 wins. I don't think so. I actually weirdly think, which is again why I'd be completely fine with Mason. I think the ceilings could be similar. I think Mason still has some untapped potential, because if he plays like he did at the end of 2023, that's a top 10 quarterback. And like all we're looking for from Rodgers, we're not looking necessarily for MVP Rodgers if we sign him right now, given his age and everything. But we're looking for, an Aaron Rodgers that's still an elite quarterback, a top 10 guy. Rodgers, though, you know what? I do got to give you some credit here with this comment. Rodgers, it is still Aaron Rodgers. Like we talked about last year with the Jets. His bad year was 28 touchdowns and 10 picks. If Mason got 28 touchdowns and 10 picks, we'd be like, oh, man, like this is a whole new second wave to Mason's career. He can maybe have like a Steve Young or a Rich Gannon type second half of his career. Whereas like Rodgers, that's a down season. So that's how good Aaron Rodgers is. That's what the floor is when you have Aaron Rodgers to your team. But I actually think here's what I'll say. I think the floor is more drastic, right? I think the floor with Rodgers is 9-8. Is there a floor under 500 with Mason? I personally don't think so, but I could get why a lot of people would say that because Mason really hasn't proven too much in this league just yet. But I think the floor is automatically 9-8 because of Mike Tomlin. It's less about the quarterbacks. But I could see why people would say with Mason Rudolph, the floor could be 6 wins, 7 wins. Whereas Rodgers' floor is going to be like 9-8, 10-7. But I weirdly think, man, it's tough to say because it is Aaron Rodgers. Maybe I just got like rose-colored glasses or rose-colored lenses whenever I'm talking about Mason Rudolph because of how 2023 went. And I think a lot of Steeler fans do too. I don't think I'm the only one. I don't. So sure, maybe there's another win or two that you could throw Rodgers' way if he's the starter when you're talking about ceiling versus Mason. But I could see the season. Let's just put it to you this way. If you take the extremes out of it and say like 75 to 80% chance the Steelers season is simulated with variations of Aaron Rodgers and Mason Rudolph, I think they can end pretty similar for the most part. It is going to be between like that 10-7, 11-6, and maybe like 12-5 range. To me, I think you can get that variation, those type of results with Aaron Rodgers and Mason Rudolph. Either or. How many more times does Aaron Rodgers get those results versus Mason Rudolph? I don't know. That's the thing up for debate. Maybe you have it leaning more Rodgers' way, like it's a 60-40 of, the times that Rodgers is out there versus Mason. It's finishing even more favorably, but I think Mason could do it this year. I really do. If Rodgers decides to pass on football in 2025 and wants to retire, I think we could do it with Mason. D-Max follows up and says Rodgers doesn't hold the ball trying to figure out the defense, which bails out the offensive line. Mason has a habit of holding that ball, though. I'll support either guy. So here's what I'll say. I think there's a plus and minus to both. Rodgers does get the ball out quicker, and I feel like that helped him more with the Packers. I mean, because he was way more of a guy that was willing to throw the ball down the field with the Packers, like at his peak, his MVP seasons, all that type of stuff, way more willing to throw the ball down the field. So like, I think he was just taking what the defense would give him. Like that was just the smartest play, the highest percentage play to dump it off. And, if you got a screen pass to Randall Cobb, Devontae Adams, they pick up 5 or 6 yards. Like that's a positive play. And Rodgers would, it's a given. If you are willing to take those deep shots, you're willing to hold into the pocket and take some hits from the defensive guys that are rushing you. But he wasn't doing that as much with the Jets. That's the thing. Like you have to have that yin and yang. You have to have that balance where those short passes are effective. If you're just throwing the short passes for the sake of checking it down and not wanting to stick in the pocket, not being willing to stay there and then take that deep shot, then you're hurting your offense, which some could argue maybe Rodgers did too much with the Jets. Whereas Mason, dude, he's hanging in the pocket. Like, I don't think he's opposed to taking the checkdowns. He took the checkdowns whenever he first started with the Steelers, and I think that was to Mason's detriment. I think he was just taking checkdowns for the sake of taking checkdowns. He wasn't taking those deep shots that were there sometimes. But whenever he got his second chance, whenever he got those last 6 starts with the Steelers, when he got benched from, at the end of I guess it wasn't the end of 2019, but it was like midway towards the end of 2019. He got benched for Duck, and then he got his chance again several times after that in 2020 and in 2022, 2023. The times that he got to play, he's hung in there. Like he hasn't been playing skittish, and he's been taking those shots down the field. He's also been making the checkdowns, maybe at not as high of a clip as Rodgers, but I don't know. There's a gift and a curse to that. I think Mason has developed drastically in the pocket and finding what the best throw or what the best attempt is. So you get what I'm saying when I mentioned just because Rodgers could get the ball out quicker. I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing. You got to factor in some other stuff at play. Is Rodgers just getting the ball out quick because that is the right play? That's the high percentage player. Is he getting the ball out quick because he doesn't want to be hit anymore and he's not willing to stay in the pocket and look for some of those deep shots? Mason's willing to do that right now. Mason's more in his prime. Mason's got the younger body. He was even doing that with Tennessee. You saw him doing that at the end of 2023 with the Steelers. D-Max also says, well, MT let Mason go over to the middle of the field. Rodgers is throwing where he wants to. Yeah, I think so. I think that's why we didn't bring back Russ. Russ wasn't throwing it over the middle of the field. I think Mason can make every throw. I think Rodgers can make every throw. Rodgers, obviously the more gifted passer, he's got some more mojo with his pass. Rodgers is arguably one of the most talented passers in NFL history, right? Like he's got some of the arm angle stuff. He's just got a better touch. He's got a better feel than Mason ever has. But in terms of arm strength, in terms of deep ball type of stuff, I mean, you could maybe argue Mason can throw it farther now. I'll put it to you that way. He has the higher arm strength, but still, Rodgers is one of the most gifted passers ever. And Rodgers, yeah, I think he's willing to make any pass possible. But if you want to read a lot into his Jets season last year, maybe he isn't. Maybe he isn't. But I'm chalking up that Jets season to just being the outlier, being like that was a disaster of a situation. Rodgers was still knocking off some of that rust from the Achilles. He should be better this year coming up. Is he going to be prime Rodgers? Yeah, most likely, probably not. But can he get us some form of that, right? Can he get us some form of vintage Rodgers? And that could still most likely be a better quarterback position to be in as a team than having Mason be your guy. I still think we could do it with Mason, though. Like, don't get me wrong. I have faith in Mason. You heard I was just talking about him. Like, honestly, I was maybe talking too highly about him. Let's get to this signing the Steelers made today. Guard Nick Broker to a 1-year contract. I don't know who this is, but this is a Steelers show. Let me give you some information regarding the guy that we just picked up. He spent the last 2 seasons with the Texans, appeared in 12 games, so no starts. I don't know if he was just out there for victory formation, the QB kneels. I don't know what he was out there for. You appear in 12 games. Maybe a guy got hurt. He had to be out there for a few snaps. He was selected by the Buffalo Bills in the 2023 draft, so he's been in the league for only 2 years. He was with the Texans, even though he was drafted by the Bills, but the Bills waived him. Texans end up picking him up. Played college football at Ole Miss. Never missed a game in 4 seasons, so somewhat of an Ironman. 48 games, 4 seasons. There you go. Started 23 games at left tackle, 13 at left guard, so versatile. Earned second-team All-American honors in 2022. And in a corresponding move, the Steelers released guard Lycidas Smith. I think I botched his name up, but he was most likely going to be – Smith was going to be fighting for a roster spot. He was going to be fighting for a depth spot in that offensive line. We release him, and we just replace him with Broker. That's my guess on the situation. Like, his ceiling is ninth offensive line guy on the depth chart. Most likely he's not going to make the team, and he's going to be maybe on the practice squad. That would be my best estimate on this situation. But last topic before we get up out of here. We got some Chris Olave news regarding the Steelers trade rumors. Albert Breer said the Steelers actually inquired about Olave earlier in the offseason. This might have even been before we got DK Metcalf. So let me read you this. It says the Steelers were interested in trading for wide receiver Chris Olave early in this offseason. Saints got inquiries from the Browns and Steelers way earlier and rebuffed them. And Olave's had a really nice offseason since. Maybe someone blows New Orleans away with an offer, but he's not on the block, and I have a hard time thinking he is going to be traded. So that's interesting. I mean, can we make the assumption then? I kind of hinted at it that we made these inquiries before we even traded for DK Metcalf. Like, the decision for the Steelers regarding our big-time receiver trade early in this offseason was between DK Metcalf and some other receivers, one of them being Chris Olave. And if you told me, hey, we got some offers on the table for Olave and DK Metcalf, who would you rather want? I'd rather take DK Metcalf. And that's even with an offer being less than what we gave up for DK Metcalf to get a Chris Olave. Like if it was a third rounder to get Chris Olave and we gave Chris Olave the extension or some sort of extension, like we gave DK Metcalf, I would still take DK Metcalf. Way more reliable than Chris Olave because the concussion history and those issues, those are concerns. That's legit. Chris Olave, he's got a little bit more frail of a frame. He is bigger than, whenever you see him out on the field, you think he's like 5'9", 5'10". He's actually 6 foot, and he's a guy that could play outside receiver. You could throw up some 50-50 balls to him, and it'll come down. But still, compared to DK Metcalf, DK, much more reliable player. Much more reliable guy that you want to be trading a significant pick for and give an extension to than Chris Olave. So I'm glad the Steelers, if Olave was legitimately a part of that conversation, even though it looks like the Saints weren't interested at all. So that was off the table. But if you gave me the option of, okay, we're making a big receiver trade early in this offseason, if you're picking between Metcalf and Olave, I'm happy Metcalf was the answer for the Steelers. Because if it wasn't Metcalf and we still end up trading Pickens, like I wonder if it was Olave, then we don't trade Pickens. You know what I mean? Like DK was the perfect Pickens replacement if we were to move off of Pickens. Less so if it was Olave. So maybe that changes the dynamic. Maybe we still have Pickens if it's Olave. That's a fun hypothetical. Would you rather have Olave and Pickens or DK Metcalf? But we have DK Metcalf and still the option to make an additional trade, right? We have that third round pick we got from Pickens and options to sign an Amari Cooper, Keenan Allen. We could still maybe make a trade. Doesn't look like Olave is on the table right now, but who knows? I don't want to wait till the season starts. Let's not get it twisted. I don't want to wait till the season starts to be talking about a Chris Olave trade around the trade deadline like we did with Mike Williams last year. We got to address this wide receiver 2 spot. Olave would be a dope addition. But I don't know what else is out there in terms of trades. We might just have to go with free agency. It might have to be Cooper. I guess Lazard, if we sign Rodgers, that would be the fit. The familiarity there. But Cooper, Keenan Allen, those are the obvious free agent pickups. Yeah, who would you rather have? Amari Cooper and DK Metcalf, or like Keenan Allen and DK Metcalf, or Pickens and Olave? That's a good one right there. That's a good either or. That's a good would you rather. Right. D-Max has one more comment. I'm going to read this, then we'll get up out of here. Once again, 2 seasons in a row, no plan for the number 2 receiver. At least kick the tires on Cooper. He is a good route runner. That's what I'm saying. If we don't make the Olave trade, if you gave me the options as we sit here right now, I'd prefer the Olave trade over picking up Keenan Allen or Amari Cooper. But if Olave is off the table, like most Saints insiders are saying, yeah, Cooper or Allen. It's so obvious. Ask Rodgers who he would want, who he thinks would be the best fit, and then go with that. Bone77 says, I say Cooper or Allen. Yeah, I think we're all in agreement at this point. If we're not making the Olave trade, just sign one of those 2. Roman Wilson, Calvin Austin, they're still intriguing options after DK, but you want a little bit more insurance. You want a little bit more security in the receiver room. D-Max says Allen primarily slot at this point in his career. That's probably fair. I didn't get to see too many snaps with him at the Bears. He is a slot guy. He's always been a little bit of a slot guy, even with the Chargers, but he could play outside, obviously. Like, that's the thing with him. You can make a case for both Cooper and Allen, like that they're not too far over the hill. Because Allen still had 700 yards with the Bears last year. Just the year prior with the Chargers had was it 1,100? I either want to say 1,100 or 1,300 yards. Amari Cooper, the year prior to this last one where he got traded midway from the Browns to the Bills, I think he had 1,200 yards. We're not too far removed from that. We're not too far away from those really good seasons by Cooper and Keenan Allen. They might have made the Pro Bowl for those seasons as well in 2023. I think they're good guys to sign. Not bad options at all. But that's it for today's show. I did say maybe we could talk about the tush push not getting banned, but maybe we'll save that for tomorrow. The Steelers weren't in favor of it, and I'll reiterate it. Rightfully so. The Steelers or any team should have been in favor outside the Eagles. Like, just ban the play. It's not a football play. It's annoying. It's not good aesthetically. I'm not a hater on it. Like, Eagles, you found a loophole. You figured it out, and you've done it at a very high clip. It's helped you win games. But at this point, I'm over it. I think we all should be over it. Like, 3rd and 1, and it's just an automatic. It's just an automatic first down. 4th and 1, automatic first down. Now, granted, other teams haven't been able to be as successful with it as the Eagles necessarily, but it's just not a good play. It's not a football play. It's not a good, aesthetically pleasing play. We should get it out of the game. That's it for today's show. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'll be back tomorrow, 6 p.m. Stop through. Here we go, Steelers. Peace.